and welcome to Motormouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
Oh, is this where I say I'm Dan? I'm Dan.
Hold on, let me look it up in the script.
Yeah. I'm Dan.
And we're here, as always, in the beautiful Reading Diner, which it's too bad that they don't have smell-o-vision at home because it smells really good in here. So you and I aren't going to be in here long because the smell's going to drive us crazy.
Right.
So we're going to move out in the gallery soon. But before we do that, just a few announcements about things going on here at the museum. We're kind of entering I don't want to say quiet time of the year because that means we're not doing anything. But as far as events go, we don't have too many events going on right now. We are, of course, open 7 days a week, 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Although we do have a couple of major holidays coming up where we will be closed. Of course, December, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and then New Year's Day. We will be closed, but we're open the week in between. So if you've got family in visiting, this would be a great thing to do with them. Bring them to the museum and show them all the really cool stuff that we have on display. Including our lobby full of Bantams and Austins, which we hope to feature on a future program, maybe next month, the month after.
Hopefully.
But tonight we're going to focus on a car that's visiting us just for the show, which is always neat. And Dan's got something to present to us, but we're not going to do it in here like we normally do.
No, we aren't.
We're going to move out in the gallery.
Out there.
So we'll meet you out in the gallery in just a minute, and we'll talk about some tires. Well, this is maybe the biggest vehicle that we have here.
The highest.
I almost said biggest thing, but the diner's bigger.
The highest seating position.
Indeed,
Yes.
yes. Yeah, you're on top of the world here. And one of the reasons is these really huge tires, which I think is the focus of...
Yes, the focus of these.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what have you got to tell us about the tires on this
These
1915?
tires, and if you can look at them, they look pretty chewed up. And, you know, you figure, what year is this now?
1915.
1915. So these tires are 102 years old. So,
Wow.
you know, they're not flat. And they're
No.
not flat because they're solid tires. Now, way back when they started motorized vehicles, they were using almost like bicycle tires, you know, like pneumatic maybe, but the pneumatics weren't that good either, and they were developing them. So they went from pneumatics to solid rubber, both on cars as well as trucks, everything. And then the pneumatics started getting better and better. However, they couldn't handle the weight. This is a heavy truck. I don't know what it is, the weight of this, but it's an electric truck, so you got all the batteries and everything. And if it had a load, this truck would have carried either coal or rolls of paper.
Rolls of paper, which is heavy.
Yeah.
Paper is heavy.
So you needed tires like this to support the vehicle here, because the pneumatic would just kind of burst out. So this is one type of solid tire, and they call this the endless tire. And you can see, you know, it's kind of like a rubber band. It's not a stretchy rubber band, but it's a rubber band. Some of them had wires in them, or like cables, and then they were vulcanized together and everything. So you had this. But what I'm going to be talking about is a segmented tire, or a block tire, in which it would be individual blocks. And look at the first one that you see on your screen, and it's a company, Consolidated Rubber Tire Company, which was also the Kelly Springfield Tire Company. They kind of alternated between those two titles, and Kelly Springfield's a little more well-known. But anyway, 1909, 1912, you're seeing advertisements from them from that era there. They also call them biscuit tires, and I have a quote from it. It says, "With the grip on the road that means progress and security from the fault of solid tires, the crowding of the rubber ahead under the load, which means disintegration. The motor wagon and truck owner will find the Kelly Springfield sectional tires the best tire for all heavy cars." The term cars is also used for trucks in this instance, which was interesting. We're talking 1909 here. Each section is dependent upon itself. You look at the next picture, you're going to see some sections of tire, and what it would be, you'd have a section like, we'll say from here to here, maybe a quarter of the span here, and it could be removed, and inside was certain blocks of rubber with a flange, and so this section would hold that flanged rubber down, and you'd have a block, a block, a block. Sometimes they were too wide, so you could have one on this side and one on the inside here, and it'd be alternating side. So one of the things, and I kind of briefly mentioned here, it talks about rubber ahead, crowding of the rubber ahead under load, which means disintegration. They said with these, the force of the weight of the truck and you're rolling on it, the leading edge of the tire, the rubber would kind of get like this little wave to it, and it would kind of crumble after a while. They also talked about heat buildup, and I'm thinking, how do you get tire heat buildup? I mean, this thing went, what, 1 mile an hour?
Yeah, less than 10.
Yeah.
With a full load, less than 10.
Your youngest could walk faster than this.
Probably.
Right? Yeah, a lot faster. Okay, so, but anyway, it was just that kneading of rubber would have a heat buildup and they would disintegrate. Now I'm looking at this is sort of disintegrated. I think it's just from old age. I mean, that's how I'm going to look when I'm old too.
When you're 102?
Yeah, when I'm 102. So anyway, that's what was going on. That was the idea of these block tires. And so you'd have a block and you have maybe an inch of space and another block and an inch of space and all the way around. And there was room for flex and also room so the air could move through it. Also, they had better traction because with these tires, you can see there's a little bit of tread here. But with the block tires, you actually have these cuts in it almost, you know, like maybe an inch wide and all the way down to the wheel itself, all the way around. And so they were pretty good with traction. And trucks like this, you wouldn't see them out in the country. Okay, you would see them in the city, probably cobblestone roads back then, or just packed dirt, oiled dirt. And so that's how these would work. They, you know, better traction in the city too. So anyway, Kelly Springfield Tire, let's see what happened to them. They ended up being part of Goodyear, actually. So in 1935, Goodyear bought them. So you've heard of Goodyear. You've heard of Goodyear, right?
Yeah, here and there, you know.
They make blimps, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing you're going to see is actually a Goodyear tire advertisement there. And again, the same idea, demountable truck tire. Now, the first one I mentioned, the Kelly Springfield, you'd come and it would be about a quarter of the wheel you could take off, you could unbolt. Goodyear, they were proud because you could replace one block at a time. You could have this little thing. There was like 2 bolts you undid. Yeah. And you're looking at the pictures, it's kind of, you really have to look to see what's going on with that, but just take my word for it. And they said on their advertisements, ideal equipment for slow speed, heavy duty trucks. So slow speed, 1 mile an hour or 10 or whatever it is, it's slow. And definitely heavy duty.
Definition of slow speed, heavy duty truck.
And it said about the individual block tire for heavy trucks that require utmost traction and non-skid properties. On rear wheels, we recommend our individual block tire. And the thing is, they also advertise, all the companies I was reading about, they advertised you didn't have to jack the vehicle up to change the tire or the wheel. Like if this one, you'd have to unbolt, you had to jack this truck up, which was a lot, okay? You'd have to pull the whole wheel off and then put another one on. Whereas these tires, you could just, if the block was bad, you make sure it's on the top, and you just take that little segment off and boop, there it is. And I think somewhere I read it took like 10 minutes to do that. So there we go. Wow. Which is pretty good. Okay. Now it talks about the decline of tires. No, not the decline of tires. The decline of Goodyear block tire prices. So Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company just announced a reduction. This is 1914. Announced a reduction of approximately 5% in the price of Goodyear individual block motor truck tires. According to advice received from the factory at Akron, this was made possible by the constantly increasing demand for this type of tire by motor truck operators, raising the production volume, lowered the cost, and so on and so forth. And it surprised me. This is 1914. They're talking about the increase of this. However, I don't think I saw any reference after 1914 to those types of tires. So they did have solid tires still, but I have a feeling the pneumatics were probably starting to make inroads. You know, they were making stronger tires.
Inroads.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So anyway, that's we're talking about that. Another advertisement you see there is the Victor Rubber Company out of Springfield. They had their block tires. Their trucks were more sure-footed with Victor block tires. Absolutely no danger of accidents because of skidding. Victor blocks establish or abolish the chain nuisance. Chains at best are expensive and shorten tire life. Now they would have tires, or excuse me, chains on their tires sometimes year-round if you had muddy streets and stuff. But if you can imagine a hard tire like this and you'd have chains on it riding on a paved surface, it would really chew the tires up. So with the block tires, you didn't need them either. So. I believe on your advertisement you see a picture of a truck there. I saw something about an oil truck, an oil tank motor truck, and they were talking about winter operations without chains, and it was 16,000 pounds or 8 tons that were on that truck, so you can see very heavy duty there.
Wow.
So yeah, it was Victor Rubber Company. They said 10 minutes to replace a piece of their tire there. And then the last one, going a little further, and you know, you go back, and I'm sure you see this a lot, researching stuff in the museum. Back in this era, you know, this is 1915 here, they were still trying a lot of different stuff out, okay?
Yeah.
You know, this block tire. Well, this company comes out, and they were called the Diagonal Block Tire Company. And guess why they were called that?
The blocks were diagonal?
The blocks were diagonal.
Ooh.
You could remove them the same way as the square blocks, but you know, they were on an angle. And I don't know if there was an
Wonder
advantage.
why, yeah. Was that better traction or
I don't know.
something?
Maybe just to attract
The
people.
wear wasn't as, I don't, who knows?
I think
A new marketing ploy, maybe.
I think that's what it was. Each diagonal block is independently removable and can be replaced right on the spot in less than 10 minutes. They're less than 10 minutes without even jacking up the wheel. So it says a new block makes a new tire. So there you go.
There you go.
So that's what I have here, and it's kind of interesting. It was something, I don't know, I came across something somewhere, and I thought, this is different here. And the more I got looking, and you know, so block tires. So
Solid. Solid block tires.
yeah, solid.
As a rock. You know, you mentioned way in the beginning about some of the tires had like a wire going through them.
Yes.
This is on a much smaller scale, but one of the high wheel bicycles that we have on display is missing little strips of the solid rubber tire.
Okay.
And you can see the wire
Yeah.
going through, which is a neat little cross section. I mean, that would be a much smaller scale, obviously. But you can kind of see what you're talking about there, how they reinforced
To take
rubber.
this a little step further, there's I saw tires, solid tires, you know, just like this, but for cars and smaller trucks, and they were talking about wireless. So they were coming up with wire. And people, I mentioned a couple people, I was doing something on this, and they said, well, how did they put these tires on? And they kind of mold them right onto the rim here. And some of the advertisements had like cross section, and you could see the rim is not just flat inside, it has little ridges and things to grab onto the rubber. So, but I guess sooner or later they might start separating or something.
Yeah.
They'd vulcanize it, the whole deal. So, but that's another show.
It's another show down the road.
Yeah. So anyway, so there you go. There's tires.
Cool.
And we have a few trucks. We have one truck here that has like brand new, because people make them now,
Yeah.
brand new tires on it,
Yeah.
solid rubber. And Kendra and I even looked at it and said, nah, it's better to have something's all chewed up. It's
Yeah.
better.
One
you
that
can see.
obviously worked very hard in its life.
Yes. So.
This one
Okay.
certainly did. So we're going to totally change our background car now, I guess.
Yes.
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 So we'll see you out by the gas station. Well, we moved over from the 1915 CT delivery truck to something totally different. Doug Miller, thank you so much for bringing your 69 Shelby, but it's a little different. So what exactly do we have here?
So it's 69 Shelby, Mustang Shelby to Mexico.
So does Shelby de Mexico? That's like,
Yes.
it's not something we would have seen in our Ford dealer here.
No,
in
you
this
wouldn't
country.
have seen it here. It's built in Mexico
Yeah.
by Eduardo Valquez. He became a friend of Carroll Shelby's when he had some work done on a car. He got to be a dealer and a Shelby dealer, and sold Shelby parts, and they became pretty good friends, and he became a licensee, in fact, to build these cars in Mexico in 1967, 68, and 69. Up till 71, he built a few.
Okay. So this is a 69 here, and I mean, it's a little different than one you would have bought in this country. And you were telling us some of the things that were different, such as?
It has they only built coupes in Mexico, so in order to make it look more like a fastback, they put an extended fiberglass piece on the roof to extend it back, change the roof line, and in order to cover that up, they put vinyl roof on it. They have local content. It has, instead of a Ford rear, it has a Dana 60 rear. It had tires were made by Goodyear, but they were Mexican manufacturer. The glass and the interior was all manufactured in Mexico, and they made 306 of them. And in 1969, and this was brought into the country in 1991.
Now, I have to tell you, and tell our audience here, I saw this car at the Kutztown, Kutztown? Fleetwood, excuse me, I get those two mixed up. Fleetwood Car Show about 10, 12 years ago. And I remember walking up to it and I'm thinking, something looks different with this car. And it was just a total side view of it. And it wasn't up until I got it, you had some paperwork there and explained what it was. And it's that roof line. And again, they're made from the coupes. Yep. And the coupes have a different roof line, we'll say from here to here, than the fastbacks do.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a flat roof, and then it just angles sharply down instead of a nice curve. And it was neat. And then I didn't see it for years, and I thought, well, you know, it went back to Mexico or something. No, it's local, so it's a cool car. So pretty interesting story on how you discovered this car. And I understand it wasn't just you, it was you and your wife sort of discovered it.
Yeah, my wife and I had been shopping, and we came through Kutztown, and it was sitting on a lot at Holloman Ford, and the gentleman who owned it had passed away, and they were just selling it on consignment. And my wife told me when we got home that I'd be chicken to go back and look at this, and we had talked about getting another car, an old car. So I said, no, I'll go look at it. So I went and looked at it, and they showed me some documents and stuff they had. And I thought, well, this must be the real deal, but I had never seen anything like a Shelby like this because it had all this Shelby markings on it and everything. And I put a bid on the car, and several weeks later, after I had completely forgotten that I did this because I did it from work and my wife didn't even know about it, she was home with the flu and from work, and I came home and she said the guy called and said you should come pick up the car that you bought. And I thought, what car? And I remembered that it was this car. So it was a pretty good story.
And I think you deserved it because you said you saw it, you were coming back from shopping.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were shopping, I think you should have bought a car.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
you don't,
Sure.
if you're if you think about shopping like I do.
So it was at a dealership in Kutztown. I mean,
Yes.
did they even really know what they had exactly?
No, well, not really. The most of the people came in with kids and they wanted to buy with their fathers and they wanted to buy it for $500. And I mean, the car is a desert car. There's no rust on it. The underside is like brand new. It's really, other than having it painted and new seat covers on it, and of course I had to replace the engine, which I have the old engine at home, but I had the trouble with it. And but other than that, maintenance-wise and everything, I've painted it, but the body, it's never been restored. The underneath in the chassis has never been restored. Never been a part other than to be painted.
So Doug, you mentioned you replaced the engine. Tell us
Yes.
about the original engine on this, because that was a little different.
The original engine is a Mexican block 302 that had been bored 60 thousandths over and blueprinted by Shillington Automotive when the gentleman had purchased it and brought it here, had first gotten it. It has 289 hypo heads that have stickers on them from from Valley Head Service. They were originally on a 289 Trans Am engine that Carroll Shelby had gotten from Ford and given to them or sold to them, and it has the 289 hypo distributor and so forth on it, and it had at that time it had an odd side oil filler on it, an oil cooler, a remote filler, an oil cooler on it. A lot of little things like that are completely different on the car.
And you mentioned, before we went on the air, you mentioned something about the block itself was being, the Mexican engine blocks were better
Yeah,
material.
they have a higher nickel content, so they a lot of the racers wanted them because they're much stronger.
Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, so how long have you had this now?
Oh, I've had it from about 2002, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. We bought
Okay.
it.
So, it's pretty neat.
You were telling us too about some other cars like this that, well, one which is very far away and
Oh,
South Africa.
yeah. I had gone to a Shelby Automobile Club convention at Virginia International Raceway, and as soon as I got done parking, a gentleman came over and said, "I don't believe I see another Shelby to Mexico," and he told me that he has this Eduardo Valquez's wife's car, and he had bought that and taken it to South Africa, and he was talking about some of the things that are unique to him that we were discussing. And I met some gentlemen at the Watkins Glen several years back that told me that they knew this gentleman and that they had talked to him, and he still has it there. And they were Mustang guys from Australia and New Zealand, and they restored Mustangs, and they were at the SAC convention at Watkins Glen, and they were buying parts and so forth.
So that means there's how many in existence?
There's 3 that were in the United States. This one here, the green one. There was a black one that was in Canada, and there's a red one that was in Mexico City in a museum, which was brought to in the United States and is in the States now. So there's 3 of them that I think that are in the United States.
Okay. So there's it's a very rare car here. So.
Yes.
And you said something, and I can't remember if it's this car or another one, about the lights in the front. Is that this
Oh,
one?
the headlights on these, because they were in the high desert and a lot of long straights, they had airplane landing lights in the high beam lights.
Yeah. Was that the standard way these cars were made, or?
Uh,
Yeah.
They probably did that a lot to
Yeah.
a number of them, but it seems like from the stories that I have in the magazine articles and so forth that I got from the internet that they were built, sort of custom built to anything that you wanted to
Okay.
put on them.
All right. And I was reading about this, the Eduardo Valquez, did I say that right?
Yeah.
I was reading a little bit about him, and yeah, he was pretty much like Shelby's right-hand man in Mexico. And,
Yes, yes, he
and,
was.
and it seems like he was the biggest distributor of Shelby cars. I read, I stumbled on
in
that. and
Mexico,
that's-
he distributed parts. He drove around with a Volkswagen van and distributed Shelby parts, and some of the Shelby stuff went to South America and Central America and
Really?
everything.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
And so he had these cars, and I guess he started out because he was racing them, right? And then he got more and more involved in the company.
Yeah, he wanted to build a race car, and they were building these cars.
And I also read something about well, I guess it'd be Shelby de Mexico, but it wasn't a Mustang. It was a Maverick, the Ford Mavericks.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. After Shelby got out of building the Shelbys in '70, he built some Mavericks down there because the chassis are similar, and he could put all the modified parts over in that. Had modified hoods and so forth in them.
So, now I have to ask you about the tachometer here. Now, I'm not a Shelby expert or anything, but is this a Mexican thing with the tachometer?
No,
or is
you
that...
could. That was an accessory that you could actually buy from Ford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
that's pretty neat too. So.
It did. It has a sticker on there. It says to Mexico. The one I have on there isn't. The other one had fallen off, and this is one that's similar to the sticker that was on there. So that was even marked.
And when you bought this car, what was the mileage on it?
It had 14,000 kilometers on it.
Yeah, so it's not mileage. It's what? Kilometerage.
Yeah, it's all in kilometers.
Kilometerage.
Yeah. And yeah, we figured out roughly what you have now. I think he said about 30,000 kilometers on it, which is 18,000.
Over 18,000.
Yeah, so
18,
it's pretty neat.
Something.
So you show in a lot of shows or locally or?
Yes, I've shown at a lot of shows around here, and like I say, I had it to Charlotte. I drove it to Charlotte for the 50th anniversary. We've had it to Virginia to the VIR, to the SAC convention. We had it to Watkins Glen to the SAC convention. The latest one, we were at Pocono to the SAC convention with it, and we drive it quite a bit.
So you probably create quite a stir when you come up to one of these conventions and they see something like this.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I've had it up. We had it in a building up at Carlisle a couple years ago. We were up there.
So, yes.
I know you had it repainted, and you were telling us that it's actually a Lincoln color.
Yeah,
did you say?
it's a Lincoln color on it. Yes.
And you only had it painted not long ago, I thought.
About 3 years ago, we had it painted, and I had to have new seat covers put in it.
Oh yes, you were saying the seats were a little worse for wear by the time you got it.
Yes.
And now, is there anything with this car that is specific to Mexico that had to get replaced? So in other words, if you had to replace it, you would really have to search hard? Or is it pretty much all American things on it?
Well, the hardest things to replace, and I could replace the fiberglass pieces, the end caps on the rear taillights, and the trunk could be replaced. They're similar to the Shelby or to the California Special pieces, but these are actually, if you look at them, they're unique the way they're designed with the way they're built.
Okay. All right. And again, we kind of touched on this, but if I'm right, you know, the cars that were sold in Mexico had to have, I think you used the word local build or something.
Local content.
Okay, local content. So in other words, if you wanted to buy a Shelby Mustang from the U.S. down there, I guess you'd have to pay like an arm and a leg to get it in. Probably high tariffs and such.
Yeah, they didn't want you to want to import. They didn't want you to import anything because they wanted the labor down there.
So again, that's what makes this unique is the coupe body, because they were making the coupe Mustangs down there, but not the fastback
Yeah,
ones, right?
no, they didn't make fastbacks. So then the window glass was built in Mexico, is labeled Mexico. The door panels are different. The headliner's different. The seat covers were homemade or handmade down there, custom made. And like I said, it has a Dana rear instead of a Ford rear because it was all local content like that. And the tires were Mexican Goodyears. So it had a lot of local content.
Yeah, now you still have the original engine that was in it, right?
Yes, I do.
Kind of tucked that away for
I have
safekeeping.
that.
Yeah, so.
It's in pieces, but I have it.
No, it's easier to store that way.
Yeah.
How's that for an
Yes, it
excuse?
is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And you were also saying, you pointed out earlier, it has the Mexican registration
It has a
sticker.
Mexican registration sticker on the windshield. All the registration, there's a registration on this door, on the driver's door in Mexican, and there's one on the passenger door, which usually they don't have a registration like that. But everything, the caution emblems on the hood here, underneath the hood, are all in Spanish.
Spanish, okay.
Yeah, everything's in Spanish.
Now, I have a question for you. Is once in a while, now you don't drive this too often, but you do need to get gas in it once in a while.
Yeah.
So when you pull in to get gas, is it like the crowd form and everything?
Oh, you get people that come over and they want to ask you about it and tell you it's a really nice car and so forth.
And their
Yeah.
aunt had one just like it, except it was a convertible on the screen.
No, I didn't have anybody say that.
But they'd probably come over thinking it's just a regular Shelby, and then you start telling them, well,
Yeah.
it's a Mexican
Yeah.
and this and that. So.
In the last several years, it seems the more that I've gone to these shows, more people have become aware of the Shelby to Mexico's, and a lot of people come over and say, I never thought I'd see one. In fact, the gentleman from Kutztown that gave me an award at the show this summer knew about these cars, but he said, I thought I would never, ever see one of these things, and he was really surprised, and then I won an award from him for having the car at Kutztown at the cruise.
Yeah, the backyard. So.
Now it is, you were saying earlier too, that it lacks a heater.
Yes.
Which, so bravo to you on tonight bringing it out here because it's cold out.
Yeah, it's cold. Yep. Yes, it's very cold.
Yeah, I guess, Mexican, they don't need heaters.
It's a high desert. They
Yeah.
need a heater. It's a desert car. Yeah.
So, it's interesting.
But lacks rust as a result, so.
Yeah, it lacks rust, and that's wonderful because it's really a solid car. It's like new underneath.
Yeah.
So, now you said there was a local guy had work on it, and they did some stuff to the engine and such. But before him, do you know the history of the car going back that way?
The car was brought into the country in 1990, and a guy from California that was a restorer, and another guy, I can't think of their names, but they had brought the car up, and I think it was painted and so forth out there. And then a guy named John Brad Wagner had the car, and it was a feature in a Mustang Illustrated magazine that was put out by Hot Rod. And then the car was brought to Pennsylvania in 91, 92, and that gentleman had to have, like I said, had the engine rebuilt, and he had the car for about 10 years, and it was around 2002 that I bought the car. Then he had passed away, and his wife sold the car.
Okay. So you do know the past of it, and it's neat. It's just a neat car, and I like it. So.
I mean, is there anything else that you plan on doing with it, or is it kind of as it is now? Is how? Because I know you drive it. It seems,
Yeah. I'd like to do some work on the suspension or whatever. Some of that's, I'd like to have some things rebuilt that I think are getting old.
Yeah.
And some of the rubbers and bushings and so forth on the suspension are getting pretty solid.
You had talked about the brakes too, right?
I had to have, yeah, it had drum brakes on it, and it had old metallic lining on it, and it didn't stop, and I had to get modern brakes, disc brakes put on it, and so it'd be safe for me to take it to Charlotte and
Yeah.
drive it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have many miles on it, so
No.
I guess a lot of that stuff was still
Yeah.
intact.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a 4-speed car.
Mm-hmm.
Has the Ford top loader and stuff in it. Yeah.
So thanks for bringing it. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
It's kind of a neat thing. And,
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
you know,
thanks. This is neat. And like
Kendra-
I said, bravo to you guys for driving out in the cold when you don't have a heater.
Kendra wants one of these for Christmas, right?
Yeah, put on my wish list.
Yeah. So, okay.
Chump change, you know.
Thanks
But
again.
it is in beautiful
Okay,
shape, and
thank you.
thank you for bringing
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, well, now we're back here in the diner waiting for our food.
Yeah, we're gonna have some food. It
coughing.
smells good in here. Yeah. So maybe
We-
this food will take care of that cough. So, oh, here we are.
It's soup. They say soup is
Yes.
good for colds, right?
That's what they say. That's what my mom always says. So,
Moms are always right.
thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Smells really good.
Yeah. Tomato soup.
So, while we're waiting for this to cool down,
Yeah.
I have to ask, where have you been lately?
Where have I been lately? Well, I've been to work. I went to work today.
Oh,
That wasn't it.
that's not that exciting.
No,
Maybe
it
it's
isn't.
exciting. I don't know.
But no, I have to tell our viewers of where I've been, and I haven't been here since I think in the spring I was here. But it's such a cool place to go. If you want to travel, spend a night at this place. It's pretty neat. But it's the Lincoln Motor Court in Man's Choice, Pennsylvania. And for all those, you ever hear of Man's Choice?
No.
Besides reading this, okay.
No, I have not.
It's a suburb of Bedford. So if you go out to Bedford, and you take Route 30, which is the Lincoln Highway, west from Bedford, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles, and you come across the Lincoln Motor Court.
I was going to say, is that where the Lincoln comes from? Because it's on
Yes.
Lincoln Highway.
And
All
what
right.
makes this cool is there's tourist cabins there. And tourist cabins are something before the regular chain motels and stuff. And at Lincoln Motor Court, there's 12 little cabins shaped like a U, and in the center is a house, and that's where the office is, and that's where the thank you again.
Hey, look at this.
And that the owners live right there in the house, and it's right there, and it's pretty neat.
Oh, so they're right on,
Right on the Lincoln
almost
Highway.
like a like bed and breakfast, obviously, but it's not a bed and breakfast. Like where the owners
it's like
are
a
right
bed.
there.
It's like a bed and breakfast, but there's no breakfast.
It's a family owned.
It's a bed. Yeah.
A
It's
family-owned
yeah.
establishment.
And I sort of have discovered family-owned motels in the past year or so, and not saying anything against the chain motels because you got a lot of extras with them, but if you want inexpensive motel and you go online and you can read the readers' comments or the people who've stayed at these places, and you find decent motels that way. But anyway, the Lincoln Motor Court is just really cool. And you park your car right in front of the little cabin, and you go in. And I remember, I've been there twice. The first time I went, I remember walking in, and the walls are like knotty pine paneled.
Ooh.
I mean, they don't put a calendar in there because it wouldn't fit. It was just, it just such a step back in time. The bedspread on the bed was like something you would see from 60 years ago.
I was going
70.
to say, do you know when those were built? Like about the
I believe it's 1940 they were built.
40s, okay.
And they've kept them up as they were, and it's just neat. And they have like little old metal lawn chairs out in front. You can sit if it's cool, warm enough.
Oh, I can picture it in my head.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, the first time I was there, I was watching college basketball on TV, and I felt that a place for watching TV.
I was going to say,
should have
like,
been in black and white, at least.
at least with the dials.
Yeah.
to get up and turn. I was gonna say, like, now when because I know, like you said, you've kind of discovered the family-owned hotel lately, and we've talked about some of the places you've been, and they're really neat. You've shown me some photos, and
Yeah.
the interiors are just so cool. I mean, how updated are like the amenities inside something like the Lincoln Motor Court? I mean, you say now you have TV. I mean,
Yeah.
and it seems out of place,
It's okay.
sort of. But
Well, they didn't have air conditioning. Last time I was there, I think it was in the spring, maybe late spring. But, you know, it was cool enough where, you know, the windows are open, you hear the cars out on the highway once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just old fashioned, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just really neat, so.
was this the place that said they closed at
No,
10?
no.
Oh, we were talking about something else earlier
So,
out there. And
Yep. But you call them up and, you know, they gave me a discount because I was a military veteran, and that was kind of cool, and that they
Oh, wow.
recognize that kind of stuff. And yeah. And I also asked them when I was there, I says, are you familiar with Maud Betty? And she goes, oh yeah, we are. And I says, has she ever been here? Now, Maud Betty, in case you forget, viewers, last month she was our special guest. So she's into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this
so,
is her thing. Yeah.
So that's what you do is next time you're in the Bedford area, if you don't know where Bedford is, you just keep heading west. And if you got in Ohio, you went too far. So, no.
Roundabouts.
I don't know. It's maybe an hour past Carlisle on the turnpike, maybe a little more than that.
And so these are the little cabins. I mean, like, how big is a cabin? I mean, it got room for, I'm assuming it's like a double bed or something.
Yeah, there's a double bed, and that kind of fits right between the walls.
Uh-huh.
And then at the foot of it, it's a little wider, and you got a little bathroom.
Yeah.
That, and the bathroom is, you know, the old-fashioned ceramic tiles, and it's
Is it
just
pink?
really neat.
Is it a pink
I
bathroom?
can't remember, but they just haven't updated things, and
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing. It's just
No.
they haven't modernized
That's
it. like
part of the
everything else.
charm.
Yeah,
And
they realize that, and
Yeah.
they have a guest book in each room, and you read what other people had to say,
That's
and it's
neat.
just pretty neat. And,
that's neat.
So.
Again, like another one of those like roadside businesses. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, people get in cars and start traveling, and they, you know, need a place to stay, and they're right on the Lincoln Highway or some other big road like that at the time. And
And
these
being
little-
they only have 12 units there, 12 cabins, and I believe I was told in the winter months or the colder months they close all but 2 of them because, you know, they drain the water and such and all
okay.
that. So, you know, you call ahead, just go online and type in Lincoln Motor Court or Lincoln Cabins or something. There's all sorts of different names you can find it. So
we need a cabin here on display.
we do need a cabin.
It's tiny.
Yeah, they don't take much room.
No, it wouldn't take up much
About
room at all.
the size of this table. So, and now, and if you go to Bedford, also, if you need gas, you go to Dunkel's Golf. And Dunkel's Golf is great because that's like from the 30s.
Wow.
It's a gas station, and it's Art Deco everything, and
It sounds
it's
wonderful.
neat. And it's not self-serve, so. But yeah, that's just as cool. And I've seen paintings of that and pictures. You go online, you're going to see a lot of Dunkel's Golf. And that's right in the
Wow.
center of Bedford. Now, I have to also mention another thing. See, this is Bedford. Once you get out of this area, you get these little clusters of things. There's a place just up the road from the Lincoln Motor Court called, let's see, I have it written down, Ron's Antique Radios and 50s Place Mini Museum. And I saw that place when I went to the tourist cabins, and I asked the proprietor, I says, what's this radio thing? She goes, oh, it's some man has it at his house and stuff. And I went up, and it was closed for the evening, but I went the next morning. And it was this man has like a shed in his backyard. It's the size of a large garage, we'll say. And he has a collection of radios. is like phenomenal, and he is educated. He knows all about them, and he'll just have a great conversation. He used to restore cars there, and he finally gave up on that. And you know, he
procuring radios.
He can't maneuver around like he used to, but he had this radio collection. Now it's open to the public. So,
Wow, this is like, I'm planning a weekend here.
weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
My brother would be all over this. We gotta
Okay.
go do this.
Ron's
This is cool.
Antique Radios.
Huh.
It's on Route 30. About a half mile
Hit
before
up those
Lincoln
turnpike
Motor Court.
tunnels too.
Oh yeah.
This is like a perfect nexus of things for my
Yeah.
family.
Man's Choice also has a wonderful mail pouch barn if you want to take a picture of that too. Remember, I stopped to take a picture of it, and the police came next to me and says, "Could I help you?" I said, taking a picture? Okay. Just being friendly, I guess. I don't know. So,
Did you ever see the movie Niagara?
no.
It's a Marilyn Monroe movie. Has my favorite actor in it, which is why I watched it. But they go, this is a honeymooning couple, they go to Niagara. And I always wanted to stay there. And they stay it's overlooking the falls, and it's these little cabins, you know, making a U, sort of,
Right.
to look out on the falls.
Okay.
And I always thought that was just so cool. I bet they were slightly larger. Well, at least in the movie, they're slightly larger than what you're describing. But again, they're shooting a movie. They,
When,
you know,
when
they
would
need to-
that have been filmed?
It was in the 50s.
50s.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess at that time they were starting to die out, and the chains were starting to get, you know. But this Lincoln Motor Court, they say, I believe on their website, they say they're the only operating tourist cabin motel on the Lincoln Highway. And you figure the Lincoln Highway goes all the way across the country.
Wow.
So, and I
That's
think
something special.
there's other places that have them. You know, I know up near Hershey, there's some places. In fact, there's one of those tourist cabin places for sale.
The whole
The whole property.
layout.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I think you ought to buy it. You and your husband.
And a little investment property there.
Each of your children will have their own cabin.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, soundproof.
I like it. I like it.
So,
Near Hershey.
yeah, or on old Route 22.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Well, you know, I worked at the Hotel Hershey, which is
The
quite
opposite,
different.
yes.
But I remember when I was there, they told us, you know, like one of our orientation sessions, like the rooms there are not large. Okay, we think of like upscale chain hotels nowadays, and the rooms are very large. They usually have like this little sitting area, plus a bed,
Right.
plus this huge TV. And the Hotel Hershey does not. The rooms are pretty small, and it actually it prevents them from getting a 5-star rating or whatever. They can never get higher than what they are because the rooms are too small, considered too small.
Okay.
But they're okay with that because to them, they're doing that because it preserves the historic nature of the building. It's the 30s. It was built during the Depression. So, of course, in the 1930s, they didn't, you know, what was spacious and luxury then. You know,
Right.
It's a very different concept
Right.
now. So, but they accept that in order to keep the historical significance of the hotel alive, that they're just not going to attain that last star. They think it's more important to keep the building accurate, which I think is neat. And, you know, a different scale than the motor court, but the same principle, you know, preserve
Right.
what it
Right.
used to be like, so we have it.
Yeah.
Even though it might not be quite what we think of as standard or luxurious today, or you know.
But you know, in my viewpoint, and I guess anybody who would want to stay there realizes right from the get-go that you're not going to have, you know, the same layout as a modern hotel and
Right.
motel, and you know, it's just the ambiance of
Sure.
being old-fashioned. So
What you're giving up, you're getting back tenfold, and
Yeah.
just charm and the experience, I think.
So this is a neat thing with this show that we have right now, Motormouth. Yeah, we're talking about you know, the truck out there with the tires and the Mustang out here, and but yet, you know, the car experience is bigger, and part of that
Yeah.
is traveling around and trying to imagine how it was in 1940 or 1950. People traveling around, and now it's a big deal to these little tourist cabin things. But back then, it was just they were happy to get any place to stay.
Right.
I don't know. I think in Bedford itself, there was probably some regular hotels, but they probably cost more, and but this was like country living, I guess.
Well, and if you're just driving through, all you really need to do is just have a place to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need anything.
Right.
You're just going to get back on the road.
So I just remembered a couple other things that are near there is one of these gravity hills. Ever hear of them?
Oh.
Okay, gravity hills. It looks like you're going uphill, but you're really going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
So they say. And I remember going to the one near there, and the road looked flat, and my car didn't coast or anything. So I'm thinking, I don't know. So it wasn't that different. I was expecting a hill this steep that really was going the opposite.
Yeah, no.
So.
Not quite as dramatic as that.
And then you go a little further down Route 30. You come to where I forget where it is. The crash, the 9/11 crash,
Yeah.
flight, whatever that is. That's
Is that Summer?
it's between there
Shanksville.
to Shanksville, yeah. And it's probably maybe 10 miles away, 15 at the most. So some neat stuff out there.
Yeah.
So
For an area that's not high population. I mean, but look at all this cool little
yeah,
stuff that's
cool stuff.
there.
So
Right. Really, no, you don't just get in the car and you're there in a half hour, but really it's in our backyard. It's right.
But people go on vacation, and for instance, let's say they're going to the 9/11 memorial out there, and it's like, okay, we could drive out there and drive back in a day. That's a tough day, but you're driving out there, you can stay there.
Stay at the Lincoln Motor Court.
Yeah, and then the next day you go a little further and hit the Summit Diner in Somerset. So that's another show.
See?
I think we mentioned that last month too.
You may
Summit
have.
Diner. So.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
that's where I've been.
I like it.
Yeah. So, okay.
So go patronize a family.
Yep. So we
Business.
went to Man's Choice, Pennsylvania today. We also went to Mexico.
No wonder I'm tired.
Yeah. Now we're going to have some good old American cheese sandwiches. Tomato soup.
Heck yeah. And you forget the CT truck, which is close. That
Yeah,
was built in
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia,
Yeah.
which
So.
we focused on the tires, but that whole truck is really cool and
Yeah.
it has a really cool story. So you really need to come check it
Yeah,
out.
so you viewers saw the CT truck. It was kind of the background of us, but you have to really come and see it live to get the
Scope of that.
scope of it, yeah.
It's a big truck.
Ginormity of it.
But and I know we talked about the batteries, but it is electric,
It is.
which is always cool, of course. That we have like a really old electric here. And it worked in Philly, and we still get people that remember those trucks.
Really?
Because even though it was built in 1915, the company that owned it was a fleet of them. I mean, I don't know how many there were. Ours has a number on it. I mean, it was one of a fleet, and they were in service till the 60s.
Yeah, I think 61.
Yeah,
I think
so
so.
people still
Yeah.
will come in here sometimes, and they remember them driving down
I guess
Philly.
if you were a kid seeing something like that in 1961, that would probably stand out.
I think
It
I'd
was going
remember that.
slowly, and it was
Oh,
huge.
Yeah.
With rolls of paper on it. You don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
So.
Well, I'm getting hungry. But before we wrap up, like I said, a reminder that we are coming up on some holidays here at the museum. So usually we're open 7 days a week. We will be closed Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. But we're open all the days around that. So great time to bring in the family, especially if they're up here visiting and you're looking for something to do. This is a great place to come.
If you're looking for something to do locally,
If you're
Yes,
looking
if
for
you're-
something to do, you want to go out of town, then you go to Lincoln
Yeah, I was
Motor
going to say,
Court.
if you're going to be in Bedford,
And
we
Ron's
just gave you a
Antique
whole
Radios.
itinerary
Yeah.
of things to hit up. And you have to come and see our really great collection of Bantams in the
Yes.
lobby. And if you've been watching the show from the beginning, because I think this was a pretty early program, we talked about the museum's Bantam quite some time ago. Well, now we've got 8 in the lobby, including ours, plus another Bantam in our collection. But the other 6 are on loan to us, so they won't be here forever. So Christmas time, winter would be a great time to stop in and see them. And we got a couple of other new additions sprinkled around the
But we can't
gallery,
tell them.
too.
They have to come
They
and find them.
have to come see them and report back. We
Yeah.
expect a 250-word report.
Yeah. Single spaced or double?
Sing- I'll go single spaced.
Okay.
We'll save on the paper. It's all right. So, yeah, there's lots here to see and do. And also, Saturdays, we typically have our blacksmith here. So if you come on a Saturday, that's a little bonus. Other than that, I think we are done for this month. We always love hearing from our viewers, so contact us anytime. You can email me, Kendra, Kendra, at boyertownmuseum.org. Or, of course, you can always call the museum, 610-367-2090. Stop in and visit us here at 85 South Walnut Street, and we'll be here.
Yeah.
With all this great stuff around us.
Yep.
So come and check it out. And we'll see you all next month.